So let's now take a look at an audit program, and we'll use the inventory example again. So at the beginning of the audit program, we have all of the guidance, which is part of the Knowledge Coach methodology. Then we've got a summary of our lead sheet for this area. So we've got our inventory accounts and our cost of sales accounts, showing our balances from the prior year and the current year. We've got a summary here of those tailoring questions that we completed right at the beginning of the audit and how those have impacted the creation of this work paper. So, we said that inventories and cost of sales was applicable to this engagement. That's why this work paper has been created. We've got a summary of our materiality calculations, a summary of our risk assessment for the inventory area, so we can see what risks we had identified and the levels identified and the approach we plan to take. Summary of our primary assertions, documentation of our control testing approach, and then we get into our substantive procedures. And you'll see here we've got 6 warnings about the tests that we've got in our audit program which may have been rolled forward from last year. So first example here, the assertion level risk accuracy, valuation or allocation of inventory was assessed as maximum, but substantive tests of details haven't been allocated. So maybe we're taking a fully substantive analytical procedure which isn't appropriate when we've got a maximum level of risk. 17 of 18 procedures are the same as they were last year, so we need to consider whether the approach adequately addresses any new and emerging risks and also incorporates an element of unpredictability in the way we work. 4 of the risks we've identified don't have any procedures associated with them. We've got an assertion level risk which was maximum last year, but this year it's moderate. But we haven't changed the procedures, so maybe we're over auditing and maybe we can cut the procedures because the level of risk is lower. Another assertion level risk here was assessed as moderate, but we're performing substantive tests of details. It might be more efficient for us to choose analytical procedures instead. And 4 of the procedures we've selected have data analytics alternatives, so we should consider whether we could do those more effectively or efficiently by using data analytics instead. So let's go in and edit the procedures that we've got in our audit program. So once again at the top we've got those diagnostics and insights at the top. On the left hand side are our risks, so we have that specific risk we created in our risk assessment, and then all of the assertion level risks that we also pulled in against each assertion here. And we also summarised the level of those assertion level risks. So let's have a look at one of those risks and see how that's being addressed by procedures. So if I click on this risk here, then we show on the middle here the selected procedures to address that risk. So we've got effectively 2 tests, but each of those tests has 2 different options. They're basically the same test, but one is a manual test and one is a data analytic test. So we can choose a data analytic test, which is a direct replacement for a manual test that we performed previously. And we can do that for both of these 2 examples here. You'll see on the right hand side is our procedure library, and we see here there are 3 recommended procedures in relation to the risk that we've identified here. 2 of which you'll see we've already added to our audit program. This 3rd item here we haven't added to the audit program. So if I click on the plus button, that now appears in our audit program, and you'll see we now have 3 procedures linked to that risk. The other side of the link is shown here, so if I hover over this, you'll see that 2 risks are associated with that single procedure. And I can link more procedures to the same risk as well if I wanted to. I can also add custom procedures. In the procedure library, we have our recommended procedures for the risk that we've selected. We can see the full procedure library and browse it if we want to. And also the firm has its own procedure library, which is used to augment the ones which come automatically with Knowledge Coach. So we can amend our audit approach, bearing in mind the diagnostics, ensuring we're covering all the risks, and making sure that we're not either under auditing or over auditing. And now when I go back to my audit program, here's where we'll actually document the testing that we're performing. So if I now expand out my lower of cost and net realisable value testing, you'll see those 3 procedures that we added in the procedure builder. I can see once again the risks that those are related to. I can see the assertions that those are related to. I can also link these up with the accounts that they address. Now this is important because if you look at each of these tests, they don't all cover all of the accounts in the inventory section. For example, purchased inventory, compare unit cost to invoiced price, only applies to raw materials account. The second test applies to WIP and finished goods, and the 3rd test applies to finished goods. So when we're making sure that we're covering all of the material accounts effectively, it's important to understand the link between procedures and the accounts, not just the link between the procedures and risks and the procedures and the audit area. And finally, because these two tests are data analytics tests, we've already created a work paper reference which we'll look at in the next video.